Hey everybody, it's Miss Landry. This is video 2 of the brain for AP Psychology. We're going to be talking about the limbic system. Now, if someone were to ask me to give one word to describe the limbic system, it would be emotions. So the limbic system is involved in emotions and memory formation and all the good stuff that makes us who we are. So let's jump right in. We're going to go through each part of the limbic system, and then I'm going to give you an easy way to remember the parts. Okay, so here we go. Let's start with the hypothalamus. Okay, remember that hypo means below. So the name tells you exactly where it is. And it's this, I'm going to get a little color here. Let's go do blue since we have our blue arrow. This little tiny button sitting right here, and notice that it's below the thalamus, is called the hypothalamus. So I want you to think of hypothermia when you think of hypothalamus, because the hypothalamus is involved in homeostatic control. If you remember homeostasis from biology, this is where your body works very hard to keep you within a very small range of things like hunger, thirst, pH level in your blood, temperature control. So obviously if you're hypothermic, you're going to start shivering, and that's what's sending the message, is your hypothalamus, sending the message to shiver, which creates heat and therefore hopefully warms you up. So just remember hypothermia. Uh-oh, I'm cold, I need to get warmer. That's homeostasis. That's got to be the hypothalamus. Okay, so that's the hypothalamus. First thing you got to know. Next thing I want you to know is the amygdala. Now, some people pronounce this amygdala. I pronounce it amygdala. This is another little button, and I'll show it to you in red here. Whoops. It's this little button here at the bottom of the limbic system. And the amygdala is known for control of fear and aggression and emotion, really strong emotions. So for example, they did an experiment with cats where they put in electrodes into the amygdala and they activated it, and immediately the cats started hissing and became very aggressive. And so the amygdala is known for aggression and fear. So for example, if I have a patient come in and they have had a stroke, and the children of the patient are like, I don't know what's happening, she's so angry all the time and she tries to hit me or something, I would start to wonder if the amygdala wasn't affected by that stroke. So that is the amygdala. The next thing I want you to know is the hippocampus. So it is named hippocampus. I don't know if you can see it here. Let me go, let's see, this is green. Let me get green. The hippocampus is interesting. So it's named because of its shape. This is it right here. You can't really tell, but hippo means horse. Campi is, it's basically, the shape of it is like a seahorse. So it kind of looks like, if you picture a seahorse, right? It looks kind of like that. I can't really draw a seahorse. The hippocampus has to do with short-term memory. So this is where you build spatial maps. This is where your short-term memory is stored until it can be converted into long-term memory. So any damage to this hippocampus area is going to cause amnesia, and it will cause a type of amnesia in which you can no longer make new memories. So we studied a case study with HM, if you remember him. He had severe epilepsy, and so they went in with a brand new type of surgery, and they burned out his hippocampus. Well, they were surprised to learn that after they did that, he could not make new memories. So for example, every time a person would come in to his room, let's say a nurse, the nurse would introduce themselves, they'd have a conversation, the nurse would leave. If the nurse came back any amount of time later, HM did not remember that person, and they would have to introduce themselves again. Kind of heartbreaking, but that's what the hippocampus is. The hippocampus is involved in regulating short-term memory, holding it and converting it to long-term memory, and we will learn more about that when we go into cognition. Next is the thalamus. So this sits above the hypothalamus, right? So let's see, what color is this one? This one's yellow. Let me get yellow. So here it is. It's probably the biggest part. You'll see it when we do our sheep dissection. It's kind of the big button in the middle of the brain. And this has to do with taking in sensory information and then relaying that sensory information where it needs to go, whether it's occipital, temporal, And then it will also do the same thing for motor information. So it sends information about how to respond to that sensory information. So hypothalamus is homeostasis. Thalamus is information processing. That's kind of how I remember it. I hope that helps. We'll see. The last thing I want you to know is something called the cingulate cortex. Now, this is involved in emotional regulation. So let me show you where that is. It kind of shadows the corpus callosum. If you remember, the corpus callosum is going to look like a Nike swoosh, like an upside down Nike swoosh. The corpus callosum connects the two hemispheres. Well, the cingulate cortex is a little different in that it actually controls, hold on, let me get this color here, cingulate cortex, and it's this green shape at the top of the Nike swoosh there. It basically controls how you regulate your emotions, right? So for example, let's say that someone got me very angry. So my amygdala has been activated. Well, the cingulate cortex is going to help me regulate that anger so that I don't strike out at someone, right? It could also regulate me not blurting answers out in class. It helps with cognitive control. So it takes all that sensory information from the thalamus and from the amygdala, all the stuff that you're putting into your hippocampus, and we basically learn how to use it and when to use it appropriately. So that's the cingulate cortex. So that is kind of a run through, a run through of the limbic system. So we've got 5 things we need to remember: hypothalamus, amygdala, you have your hippocampus, your thalamus, and your cingulate cortex. Now that's a lot to remember, isn't it? So I'm going to give you a really easy way for you guys to remember it. I want you to think about a limb on a tree. Get it? Limb as in limbic system. And in the tree is a nest, and the eggs are hatching. So hatch, limb. So the first letter is H. I want you to think of hippocampus. You have to remember it, right? So that's your short-term memory. A in hatch is amygdala. You might get angry because I'm making you remember all of this, or you might get scared because you have to remember it for a test. T is thalamus. Remember that the thalamus controls sensory input and processing as well as motor processing. C, cingulate cortex. You decide whether or not to steal the eggs, but you're controlling your emotions. And finally, hypothalamus. That's the homeostatic mechanism. So hatch on a limb. That's how you're going to remember the limbic system. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.